Yes.
Hello, good morning. Good morning. Tina O here with my dear friend, Jennifer Love of the Nature of Money show.
And good morning.
We are live in the Living Wealthy community. We are live on the Tina O personal page, and we are on my YouTube channel. So we can find this interview in 3 places. I am super thrilled because what are you doing today, Jennifer? It's a party, right?
A launch party of the Nature of Money. This is a year and a half in the making.
Yeah. And this is your
Yeah.
show, right? This is your
Yeah.
show. And
Yeah.
so we're going to spend about 15 to 20 minutes together. And I'm going to walk us through a little bit. So I'm going to ask Jennifer some questions, if you're cool with that, Jennifer. Okay.
Yes,
About
please.
what this is all about and how it relates to you. And what I'd really like to dig into today, if it takes us there, is some of the 4 aspects that you bring to the table in our relationship with money, and see if we can kind of cross the divide, like the divide of business and life, or wealth and personal. And your whole thing is nature crosses all boundaries. Nature is both. So why don't we open a little bit on you're a wealth philosopher.
Mm-hmm.
Would you share with us a little bit about how what that means to you, and in connection to this show, the Nature of Money show?
Yeah. Well, I'll start with maybe even sharing how the show even dropped in. It was a year ago. The name of the show dropped in a year ago. And it was Beltane. So you and I are both Irish. And so I went out for the day. The whole day, sunrise to sunset, and took the day, a medicine walk, you might call it in native tradition, a day wonder, I might call it, right? And just collecting my medicine for the day. And my intention that day, this was a year ago, May 1st, to go out with a sense of childlike wonder and awe and collect that medicine. So much was collected. All of those nuggets you can listen to today on Clubhouse if you want to come join us for the launch party over there. And I'll share that after that, when I came home and I was debriefing with my sweetie John, and I was just sharing all the beautiful nuggets that I was getting. I was like, right, this show, which the concept had already been born or seeded, but the name hadn't arrived yet.
Yeah.
And so it was literally in nature, and through the experience of being in nature, that it showed and revealed itself to me, the nature of money. And why is that? Well, because to me, nature teaches us so much. The systems, the intricate systems in nature, the lessons, the relationships that are happening in nature, teaching us every single day how to be in relationship with money, with wealth, and how to live wealthy. And so it was. It feels divinely inspired. It feels deeply personal to me. I've been, since I was a kiddo, nature has been a big part of my life. I grew up in a family of, on my mother's side, of farmers and gardeners. I've been gardening since I was, I think, about 3 years old. Right? I remember I have this memory when we were living in Oklahoma City, and there were all these frogs. It was like hundreds of frogs, and I had on these cute little overalls, and I was putting all the frogs in my pocket. Now I know that the frog is a symbol of abundance, and I was literally putting all these frogs. Like, I just wanted to hug the frogs, and I wanted to be with the frogs. And I laugh now. I'm like, yeah, I just wanted to be with the abundance and love that nature provides for us and is always surrounding us in. So that's where it all began, Tina.
I love that. One of the things, but there's many things I love about you, and I talked a little bit about it this morning, because I only align myself with people who are doing their core work in the world.
Yeah.
And from my lens, our core work wakes up in us when we're a child. And you bring a sense of play in the way that you work,
Mhm.
And it is deeply rooted, though. Like, I want to make sure people really understand that although they may experience your playfulness, that there is some deep roots
Oh, yeah.
in the way that you work. Because
Yeah.
one, you're an entrepreneur and you have been for decades. And
20 plus years. Yeah.
right. And you have worked with 7 to 9 figure founders and their issues, because we all have issues around
Mm.
money and roots and scar tissue and going back.
We all do. We
Yeah.
all
Can you bring us a little bit into that world?
Yeah.
So I'm taking a big leap from child
Yes.
into, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, it goes back to my own story, which I'll to probably later in the day. But what I began to see and notice from childhood into my studies, right? My master's degree in organizational and human development and behavior. So I've been studying this stuff for a really long time, and I've been a money therapist for almost 20 years now, kind of behind the scenes and doing the business strategy piece. But what I began to unpack through the clinical side, the research side of my work,
Mhm.
is what's happening inside of us, right? Because I could give someone a business strategy all day long, but depending upon what was happening in one of their wealth zones, their aspects of humanity, it wouldn't matter because they would sabotage it or they would bump against an upper limit, like, we call it. And
Mhm.
so what I began to notice was, well, there are these 4 different wealth zones that that exist in us really, that make up our capacity to, our quality of, and our ability to ultimately live wealthy. And those 4 wealth zones start with this spiritual wealth zone. And that's where really our sense of
Mhm.
purpose, our calling, that's where our sense of contribution and being generous in the world, that's where generational wealth is housed, right? And then our emotional wealth zone. In the emotional wealth zone, that's where, what's guiding our decision making? How are we being with our finances, our wealth, our money, right? And people often ask me, Tina, well, Jennifer, what does money and emotion have to do with each other? And I'm like, well, all the research is showing us that more than 90% of our financial decisions are being made based on our emotions.
Mm.
And it's the emotional wealth zone that houses all of our intelligence. Now we often think, well, wait a minute, isn't intelligence isn't that like a brain thing? I'm like, no, that's smart. That's being smart. Smart and intelligent are very different things. Intelligence is actually housed in our intuition, in our emotion, right? And so what's happening for us in our emotional wealth zone has a lot to do with what's happening in our finances. In fact, you've heard me say, show me your spreadsheet, your financial spreadsheet, and I can tell you what's going on for you emotionally and in your relationship with money. Right? And then we've also got that mental wealth zone. And that mental wealth zone, that's where all of our beliefs, all of our narratives, whether they're programmed in, whether we inherited them, whether we got it from our DNA, or whether it's the lens in which we are filtering the world based on our own experiences, our own traumas, or our own life, right?
Mhm.
And so all those stories, beliefs, whether they're true or not, that's where those are housed. And the strategy, the ideas that we have about what we can or can't do, that's where that's all housed. And,
Mhm.
and then we've got the physical wealth zone.
Mhm.
And that's where all of our financial behaviors are housed, right? So are we pricing ourselves appropriately? Are we invoicing? How are we planning do we have a financial plan in place? Are we having money dates regularly, right? So all of the financial behaviors are housed in that physical wealth zone. And so what's happening inside and the interaction in between all of those different wealth zones are really what make up that quality, that capacity for our ability to live wealthy. And what I find, and we know this as farmers and gardeners, right?
Hmm.
That the soil has different layers to it. And I remember, goodness, my mom had purchased a home in Mountain Home, Arkansas, We'd moved from Los Angeles, California. Can you imagine, as a kid, I was like 16, Los Angeles, California to Mountain Home, Arkansas. Big change, big life change. And so we get out into this, big parcel of land. And it was my brother and I, and we're digging up so that we can have a big garden and all these fruit trees and all these berries. And anyone who knows anything about Arkansas soil is that it's super duper rocky, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as farmers and gardeners, we know that if you want to plant something to really root deeply, you've got to get those rocks out of the way so that those roots aren't suffocated or killed or become deformed and can't really grow properly, right? So my brother and I spent a lot of time tilling up that soil, and there's those pebbles on top, and there's the rocks, and then there's the boulders, there's more rocks, and there's the sand, right? And so we've got to clear those boulders and those big rocks out of the way. Well, this is true for our four wealth zones. Like, what are the rocks that are in the way of your spiritual, your emotional, your mental, and your physical wealth zones that are impeding your ability to live wealthy? And that's really what I'm up to, right? It's like taking these leaders, these global leaders' hands and going, okay, let's go inside you. Let's go on the greatest adventure of your life. And let's go into the depths of your human mastery and unpack and find those rocks and excavate them. Come back to the foundation of who you are. You can't even see who you are because you're so buried in all of the rocks and all of the muck that's in your way. And let's figure out how we excavate that, and then how we integrate the realness of your ability to live wealthy and begin to practice, get into the practice field of that, right? And then over time, through that commitment of mastery, you embody your ability to really live wealthy. And living wealthy is two parts, I believe. Right? It is, yes, it's all of the external financial freedom. Yes. What's on, our cash flow, our ability to live off of our assets or to even grow them even better, right? And how we're being with that. But it's also this internal state of being wealthy and what's happening on the inside, our sense of feeling valuable, useful in the world.
Mm-hmm.
How we're showing up and exchanging in the world, right? And again, coming back to, I believe that nature has so much to teach us about this relationship with each other, with money, within ourselves. And so that's why the nature of money is being born and birthed and launched and celebrated today. And I'm super excited about it.
Yay! Oh, well, you've said so much here. And I want everyone listening to know that this conversation is a big party. And so we're going to carry on this conversation, but I just want to just circle back for a real quick moment. First off, though, to let people know, the instructions are on the description of what we want you to do. We want you to go check out the show. We want you to rate it. We want you
Yes, please.
right? And Jennifer's got stuff for you. We're doing a draw. We've got all kinds of good stuff. Okay. So do that, and I'll say it again at the end.
Including chocolate and iPad and apothecary gift set. So like some really amazing gifts that you can win. Yeah.
And I want to, I had this thought that I wanted to make sure we dropped in here for all of the business professionals, everyone in the C-suite, anyone who is in a position where their decisions impact hundreds of people. I don't want to let go of that. That in the work that you do, which sounds very individuated, when you are a leader of a company that touches hundreds of people just in your sphere, but then all of your customers that are connected to you, you are one person that touches thousands of people. And what we know is that the clarity of the leader impacts all of those thousands of people. And I want to remind people of that listening to this, because one of the things that I adore about you is you work with the individual to affect globally.
That's right.
And that your work,
right. The ripple effect. It's a massive ripple effect. I see it every day with clients, right? Because the clients are leading big organizations or they're growing, teams, but it is very individual. And the money that grows and the assets that grow, that's definitely a big part of it. And they end up saying it's like the cherry on top, because really what transforms is inside them, and then the relationships that they're in, their own personal family relationships begin to really evolve. Their team relationships and the connections with their teams and partnerships begin to really evolve and thrive. Um, as you said, they're customers, and like it is such a huge ripple effect, which is why working with global leaders to me is key, because I sense that we're walking around. I don't sense, I know, I see it every day. Let me get real, right? Every day we're walking around in a world where we've got so many leaders who are making decisions from a place of being completely undernourished. And so how can you really truly lead in a healthy way? How can you lead your team? How can you lead your customers? How can you really service in a powerful way, from a place of being free, if you're not nourished and free and powerful inside yourself, right? You can kind of, but not fully, right? Yeah. And that's what we're going for. We're not, global leaders, are you really settling for good enough? Kind of okay surviving? Or do we really want to thrive, and do we really want to operate in the world from a place of fullness and wholeness and aliveness, so that we can share in that space? We look at the tree systems and and how trees are so interconnected. Those mother trees, they call them the mother tree, are literally feeding and nourishing the ecosystem around it so that it can thrive. If that mother tree doesn't have what she needs to thrive, she can't feed everything around it, right? We know this is basic foundational principles, and yet we forget it for ourselves. We forget to apply it in our own life because we're constantly giving everything away. We're constantly suffering and sacrificing. We're constantly depleted, and we don't even know why. We might look successful from the outside in. We might have it all together, quote unquote, big quote unquote, right? I might know a little bit about this because this was my own story too, right? And yet it doesn't have to be that way. We can live wealthy from the inside out.
Well, let's end there, and let's make sure everyone listening knows that you are a mother tree. And we invite you today in this beautiful, wicked, cool, fun, super splashy, awesome, intelligent, all the things, the Nature of Money show. And our direct ask to you today is to help us get this message out, because it matters. Our relationship with money affects everything. So please go to jenniferlove.com, go to the studio, click on the podcast, subscribe, and then we want you to rate it. We want you to review it, and we want you to take a picture, a screen capture of it, and DM one of us, Jennifer Love or me, Tina Overbury, and we'll put your name in the draw for an iPad, a whole bunch of awesome chocolate, and some apothecary gifts, self-care gifts of nourishment for you. And come and play with us on Clubhouse. When are we live, Jennifer? We're live there at
10 a.m. Pacific time till 12 p.m. Pacific time, and then again 5 to 7 p.m. Pacific time.
All right. So we'll see you there, everybody, and have a blessed day. You are a mother tree. We'll see you in the Nature of Money.